I'm sitting here with some of the most talented musicians in Southern Maryland. Mike Trujillo from Ono, Alban from the Dynamos, Rodger Tellis from the Runaway Guns, Kevin Jones from the Runaway Guns, but in this case, he's representing All You Need Is Doug, Jordan Pickens from Squid Inc., and Dan Tellis from the Runaway Guns. Welcome, you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit here. Tonight, we are going to talk about our upcoming event, Come Together, A Night to Celebrate the Beatles 2023, which is on May 20th at the VFW here in California, Maryland. Welcome, all. Thank you for coming. I'm so honored to be in your presence. I'm so happy that you guys were able to make some time to sit here and talk with me. So let's just get right to it. I'm going to ask favorite Beatles song, and whoever wants to go first. What is your favorite Beatles song and why?
Let's just go down the line. Start with Mike over there.
Sure.
I really like Dear Prudence. I've seen a few variations of Dear Prudence, and I personally like how I really like how it's played. I enjoy it, and I just genuinely enjoy how it sounds.
So
I enjoy it.
Let's just go back a little bit. I called you last year. I called you last year.
You did?
To put together this group called One Night Only. We shortened it to Ono.
Mm-hmm.
And when I called you, you said to me, I don't really know the Beatles.
No.
So what is your what do you think of the Beatles now that you've been? Now this is our second year doing Ono.
Yeah.
So what is your impression of them now?
I mean, I really like them now. Playing their music has challenged me musically, and I feel like I'm honestly a lot better of a musician playing, because I was only doing really acoustic covers and whatnot, and every time I went to Ultimate Guitar, I'm sure some of us can relate, we always go simplify on the chords every time. But I wanted to stop doing that, and the chord library that is used for Beatles music,
yes,
I feel like I'm not scared to just go for it. So those sevens, those sus4s, sus2s, whatnot.
right.
I'm just like, nope, I'm gonna do it.
The B minor major.
The B minor major.
7. Yeah.
You know, not mixing your minors and your majors.
Yes. That's a little inside joke. Danny?
I mean, you could ask me this question today. You can ask me next week. You can ask me a month from now.
I
You're
hear you,
going to get a
brother.
different answer every time.
I hear you.
But
So today, what
For
is your...
today, I would say, and this will hold up over time, I think it's Across the Universe.
Yes.
It's such an amazing piece of work. And when you break these things down, which that's what's going on here, is with these list of songs that we're doing, for someone like me, I've been listening to the Beatles since the 70s when I was a kid. But at this point, when you're trying to compose the songs and play the songs, you get a different appreciation that you didn't have for 40 years.
Correct.
You're thinking back, you're like, I can't imagine how they did this. It blows you away. They're composing these songs in their 20s, right? They were 20-year-old kids making these songs.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So I would say Across the Universe right now is still a song that will hold up forever.
Right.
It's a beautiful competition. Love it to death.
What's your second one?
Then I'm going to start naming albums, because,
Well,
I mean,
That's fair.
I love, there's not a Beatles song that I can tell you I don't like,
Okay.
if that's fair.
Perfect. Yeah.
I love them all.
That's cool.
They're amazing.
Excellent. Rodger?
For me, it's kind of funny because my two favorite songs are Norwegian Wood and Here Comes the Sun.
Oh, yes.
But really, my favorite Beatles album is Help. That was my first exposure.
Sure.
And, Hide Your Love Away, the title track, all that, just kind of that era of Beatles speaks to me more than all the rest of the stuff.
Okay. So it brings a special memory. It takes you back to a time.
Yeah, because it was a time of discovery
Sure.
of music instead of just listening to what was on the radio or what my mom or my grandma were playing.
Sure.
It was just the first thing where I was really discovering music myself.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I'm sure we can all relate to that moment, right? Where we discover music for ourselves. Kevin?
Today, I'll say Golden Slumbers.
Yes.
Just the emotion packed into the vocal take that Paul does.
Yes.
it just sort of, and it's like at the end of Abbey Road, so it just kind of puts a nice punctuation mark on the end of their career. But like Danny said, I mean, you ask me tomorrow, it'll be something different. There's too many great songs, and they're diverse. So, I mean, you know, you can't say like the Beatles is just like a blues band or rock and roll. They kind of explored everything.
Everything, yeah.
But I'll go with Golden Slumbers today.
So I don't want to, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but I don't want to give away the set list because obviously that's kind of the nice surprise of going to a show is like the song comes on, you're like, oh yeah. But we picked Golden Slumbers for our set, and that's also one of my favorite Beatles songs. And I've been listening to a song forever and a day, and it not one time that I listen to it where I don't get a lump in my throat.
Right?
Right?
Yeah.
So I picked it, and I told these guys, I said, I don't know that I'm going to be able to get through the song without losing my shit, right? So we've been practicing it just fine. I've gotten through the song okay. And then we had Stephanie, our cellist, who showed up on Thursday for rehearsal. And as soon as she started playing, I couldn't. I became a mess. My eyes started watering. My throat started closing. I couldn't get through the song, and I turned around and Mike puts his hand on my shoulder and he's like, "It's okay." And I'm like, "Oh my God, am I going to be able to do this?" You know. But I realized at that moment that it's all of Paul's voice, the piano in the beginning, but it's the strings that cause that emotion.
Is that what it is?
It's got to be, man.
Tricking
'Cause
us.
I'm telling you, we practiced them a handful of times, and I was fine. And then Stephanie comes in, and I'm like a puddle. And so now I'm rethinking my song choice for that night. Yeah, I know. And if I cry, I cry. It's okay. Music. That's what I love about music, when it makes me feel that way.
Adds to the show.
Jordan.
I've had the same favorite for like pushing 20 years. I'm
Okay.
Only Sleeping. It's always been my favorite.
Good one.
And I didn't even play bass when I learned that. So the bass lines are amazing, and that the whole album, the Revolver's my favorite. And that's the bass is amazing on that whole record. But the harmonies, I really like the lazy psychedelic lyrics too. I always love trippy lyrics. So
Yeah.
and the backwards guitar solo. It's the first of its kind. I'm pretty sure if I read right, it was actually recorded note for note, and each note was played backwards versus the entire solo is played in reverse, which is really cool.
Wow.
So it's an individual note cut and then flipped, which is intense, if that's true. I'm pretty sure I read that.
And that's the thing about them. It's like they did so many firsts, you know. I don't know, completely changing the landscape of music as we know it. Dan?
Well, I mean, for the longest time, my favorite Beatles song was actually Strawberry Fields, because especially as a teenager and, and a young adult, my thing was psychedelic rock. I liked trippy stuff, and Strawberry Fields was way out there. But I wasn't very familiar with the Beatles catalog at the time. I'm still learning it as I go, because until we did this last year, I didn't really know a lot of Beatles songs. And I hear a song, it's like, oh, that was the Beatles? Oh, wow. Like, I've heard it a billion times by a billion other people, but I never knew that it was the Beatles.
Right.
But once I started digging into it a little more, Your Blues kind of became my favorite, because that one really spoke to me, on a personal level, because it's heady. It's this really, grimy blues that, you don't really hear a whole lot of that, especially during that time period. It almost makes me think of like the Black Keys in a sense.
Right.
And it's all the way back in, I don't know what year that one came out.
68.
68. Yeah, it was kind of a revelation for me, definitely.
That song totally suits you. I am not shocked by the fact that that's
Yeah.
your favorite.
Because you can belt it. You put everything into it. you know?
Yeah. I love that song too. I mean, I can say I love all of them because technically I do.
Right.
So how were you introduced to the Beatles? And I know your answer.
The last year's cold call.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, no. So it was.
Yeah,
one of
that's
the-
not true because you.
It's not true,
Right.
but I'd heard some Beatles music, but I don't know, like I never had an appreciation for it, and the most amount of exposure that I got to the Beatles was last year's show, and that's when I started really looking up their catalog of like, oh, that was like he said, like, oh, you hear that song? Oh, that's the Beatles. I had no idea.
Right.
So, yeah.
I had people tell me at the show, people who came and they know the Beatles, whatever they hear on the radio or on TV, movies or, and whatnot. But you guys, Squid Inc. did Rain, and that's like a deep, deep, deep cut. And one of our mutual friends, she came up to me and she was like, I didn't even know that song existed. And she right away, she asked somebody like, what's that song called? And she downloaded it on the spot because she loved it, So to me, that's kind of what these shows are about. And I talked to you about it, how your son, Eddie, is now a Beatles fan because of sitting here in the space watching us rehearse.
Yeah.
And that's what I love that aspect that we're creating new fans, if you will,
Oh yeah,
with
for
these
sure.
shows.
I love it.
Danny?
Well, I mean, to be honest, I'm old, right? So, I was.
Oh, you're not that old.
I was introduced to the Beatles. Let me get this beer open, you guys. Sorry.
He needs a minute.
All right. So now that I have my beverage ready, all right. So of course, when I was a kid, I heard the Beatles a lot in the car when I was 3 or 4 years old, and that was in the late 70s. And then, funny side note with that, when John Lennon was killed, the next morning, because that happened at night. So the next morning, my dad was taking me to daycare or kindergarten, whatever it was. I was 5. And I'll never forget, he said, who would do something like that? And from there, once that happened, yeah, we heard Beatles songs before then, for those of you who were around then. Rodger, you know what I'm talking about. After that, there was no escaping it.
Yeah.
It was everywhere. Beatles, 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 Beatles. There's never been a point where I didn't like hearing it. I've always loved hearing it.
Sure.
It's just, so I go way back in the day. That's where I was introduced first to the Beatles. When I was a little
boy.
ankle biter or whatever you want to call it. I won't say it.
Rodger?
Again, I was introduced really young. My brother is the oldest. I'm the youngest. And in 66, 67, when he went off to the Air Force, he left all of his records behind.
Oh, wow.
And so pretty much all I had listened to up to that point was the country gospel and the Buck and Merle kind of country music that my mom and my grandma and my uncles all listened to. But once my brother left, I got into his records. And he left behind like Meet the Beatles and Help. And then also Paul Revere and the Raiders and the Animals and the Association and Beach Boys, stuff like that. Because that was all the hit stuff when he was in high school. And I gravitated more toward Beatles and the Beach Boys than any of the other stuff he left behind. And that's how I got into them.
That's awesome. That's really cool. When it's passed down like that from family, that's even more special. That's how it was passed down to me. I come from a large musical family, and Sunday dinners at my grandmother's, the guitars would come out, and percussion would come out, and that's how I learned how to harmonize, was by listening to my family, because they could all do it and like flawlessly, and sometimes even harmonies that didn't exist. Which I love, finding those harmonies that don't exist, So yeah, when it's passed down from family, I think it's even more special. Kevin,
Yes.
how were you introduced to the Beatles, my friend?
They were on the radio. I was born 78, grew up in the 80s, so they were on the oldies station. And my parents knew it. They could sing along to the songs. I had a cassette tape of there was a compilation. I think it was called Rock and Roll Volume 1 and 2. I think I had Volume 2. It had like Dizzy Miss Lizzie on it, and You Can't Do That and stuff like that. And so I liked it as a kid. But then I didn't really get it until like high school. When you start doing high school things,
Right.
you listen to Strawberry Fields, perhaps, and that starts to make sense. But I'm a record collector as well, and so whenever you could find like a Beatles record, like in like a thrift store or something like that, I would pick it up, and I have some strong sense memories of like listening to like Sgt. Pepper, like on record for the first time.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, just good stuff.
Jordan?
I've got like 2 different introductions. I'd
Okay.
say first, growing up with it, not even realizing it was them. My
Yeah?
mom listened to a lot of like golden oldies, so it was a lot of 50s rock, and that always includes the beginning of the 60s. So I'd hear the really early Beatles cuts, but never the psychedelic stuff.
Sure.
So I knew all the songs without even knowing them. Then as I got older, start record collecting, like he said, started more with the Doors, so that just introduced me to psychedelic
No.
rock. Like 100%. Still obsessed with them. I love them. And then, so that just, from there branched out to every psych rock band you can. So I started buying every album I could from them. That's when records weren't cool and they were only a quarter. I wish it was still like
Right.
that.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
So now everything's
Yeah.
$30 for,
Amen, brother.
for anything.
Yeah, I'm not even going to tell you what happened to me yesterday at Bird City Records for Record Store Day.
But later I got the Red album you were talking about.
Yeah.
So as I put that on, I'd hear all the songs like, oh my God, this is all of them? Like, I know all 20 of these songs just from hearing them on whatever, was it like Star FM growing up, the local oldie
Yeah.
station.
93 Star FM.
I think they, back when I was a kid, were more like 50s and early 60s. and
Right.
They changed through the years.
That's cool. Excellent. Dan?
Well, I mean, like everybody, I've heard Beatles songs my whole life.
Yeah.
You hear it and you don't know it's them.
Yeah.
But really, my introduction to their broader catalog was when we agreed to do this show last year, and I started kind of digging into it, trying to find stuff that I could play, a lot like Mike. And I was like, I don't know if I can play this one. Oh, I don't know if I can really pull this one off either, because it was all kind of out of my range vocally. But yeah, it was really last year that I started digging into it more, and I found a lot more stuff that really connects with me. But yeah, the first time I heard Beatles in an entirety, like an entire album, was Revolver, and this was at almost like a crash house that I used to live at back in Santa Fe. Old buddy of mine, Nick, he had a massive vinyl collection that was handed down from his dad, and he had pretty much every Beatles album, but we listened to Revolver a lot.
Yeah.
On
That's a
on
great
vinyl
album.
back then, and that was kind of my real introduction to the Beatles, I guess you could say.
Sure. I remember last year when we were picking songs and you had your phone up to your ear and you're like, I want to do, I can't remember what song. I think it may have been The Walrus and I Am the Walrus. And I was like, no, Maldi already picked that one. And you're like, of course they did.
Yeah, of course they did. Well, me and DJ have similar tastes in music, so.
Yeah. All right, let's talk a little bit about the show. I want to know what, without giving away the set list, what song are you looking forward to playing the most?
Oh man.
Mike Trujillo.
Without giving away the song.
Yeah, I mean, like, don't go through like, oh, we're doing this one and this one and that one.
Oh.
Just pick the one that you think that you're really looking forward to showing people.
I would say I'm honestly really looking forward to Dear Prudence.
Yeah.
I really am. Because that one's one that challenged me the most to start because I'm not a fingerstyle guitarist at all. I've always been with a pick and whatnot, and that intro and that that guitar part, it's all fingerstyle. So the fact that I was able to get that intro down the way it's written, and then the arrangement that is done with it. That's my favorite arrangement that we have.
Okay.
I think
It's a pretty song already, and
yeah, it's a big one.
I think we've done it some justice.
I
hope
really
we've done
think
it some
so.
justice.
I really think so.
Yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to that one.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Danny?
I'm not going to mention the song, but I will mention this. So we're adding a former Dynamo back to the mix for one night.
Excellent.
Our old keyboard player, Ronnie, who's amazing. And it changed the whole dynamic for us because we needed that. So we've been hashing out some things, and there are a couple things in this list that we're excited about because of that element that we didn't have. So I'm not going to tell you what songs they are, but I'm excited over it. So I'll leave it at that.
You can tell me later.
I'll tell you later, off the record. Or you can just wait till the 20th and hear it.
Oh, man, come on.
So I'm not going to mention a song specifically. I'm excited for all of it.
That's cool. Me too. Rodger?
I think "Don't Let Me Down."
Yes.
Is going to be fun to do.
Yeah. That totally suits you guys too. That going back to that bluesy sound.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait. Kevin?
I am excited. Well, I'll agree with Rodger for Runaway Guns. Don't Let Me Down. We haven't practiced that much, and that one stood out to me. I thought I had a lot of fun with that. That was cool. With All You Need Is Doug, I think She Said is going to be. That's been my favorite so far. Just the harmonies on that are fun, and the fuzz guitar, and it's a blast. So that one.
Sweet. Jordan?
I'll do one. Or it won't be spoiled because we posted it. It's I'll Follow the Sun, which is a pretty old deep track, but we took it and rearranged it completely to sound like us.
You
which
did.
I like doing.
I really like
Which we're doing with probably over half the songs, I'd say.
Yeah, but I mean, so like last year you did that. You went from I can't remember what song into Come Together. What, from Taxman?
Taxman,
From
yeah,
Taxman, yeah, into Come Together, and
Yeah.
it was like. the way you arrange the songs are just they're fantastic, and I can't wait to hear you guys' set.
Very cool. Appreciate it.
Dan, what song are you looking forward to doing the most?
I mean, I'm looking forward to "Don't Let Me Down." It was a lot of fun when we practiced it the other day. It was the one that came the most naturally because it's really not that different from the kind of stuff we do.
Yeah.
Another thing, like the more I've dug into Beatles, especially learning them and doing them at the practices, I'm like, structurally, these songs are not that different than the way that I structure songs. I mean, I'm noticing a lot of myself in the Beatles, and I didn't even know, I didn't even notice it. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it because there's a lot of room to play with "Don't Let Me Down." You can have fun with the leads, and Chris isn't here, but she would probably say the same. There's a lot of room to let the virtuoso wings spread a bit.
Sure. Oh my gosh, I'm just so excited to hear everybody's interpretation of their music. So how has their music impacted how you are as a musician, as a person, and if you write, how you write?
I feel infinitely more confident as a musician after doing their music.
Okay.
Just so much that has been added to the library in terms of musical knowledge from stuff that, I've been playing guitar for 15, 16 years. And I feel that, from last year's Beatles show to now this one, I feel like I've definitely improved as a musician. I was plateauing and I feel like I'm over that plateau.
Excellent.
So I feel more confident when I play. I feel like I have a little bit more oomph to my play style. Even for stuff that I've been writing personally, I've been able to take some of the library of stuff that I've learned, and I've actually incorporated it into my own writing, which I'm very excited about. So musically, it's been a whirlwind of a change. Very good, positive change.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Danny.
Well, I don't write much, but
No, but I mean,
But what it's done for me is it opened my eyes to production, which is an aspect of. It's a safe aspect for somebody who doesn't really write. To you listen to more production than you do when you're. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but when you hear the instrumentation and the different parts that are written to go along with the bare bones of the song, you got the bare bones. All that other stuff that goes on with it. Somebody's creating that. Somebody's writing it. It's the production. That's what impacted me the most.
Sure.
The production.
Sure.
So that is the thing that inspires me the most, the production.
So how do you incorporate that into your play?
Well, being just a bass player, I can't, but
Sure you can.
but no, just I'm just kidding. So what really opened my eyes here in the last few weeks is, okay, I've been playing for 32 years. I love playing. But the way Paul plays has changed the way I'm doing things, my approach. I've always respected him, from back in the, 80s when I was a teenager listening, and I'm like, oh, Paul McCartney's one of the best bass players I've ever heard. But when you start playing that, you're like, you got a lot of work to do, son.
Right.
You got a lot to do. So it has really changed the way I look at my approach on what I am. If I'm going from here to here, how do I want to get there?
Sure.
I'm not going to flip it left. I don't know why I just mimicked that left. But
You're trying too hard.
yeah, because that's what this does.
Yeah.
It makes you think too much. Breaking down these songs really takes you to a place where you might not have been comfortable being.
Right.
And then once you get there, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, wow, I don't know anything.
Would you say it's all too much?
It's all too much. So, yeah, it's impacted my playing recently. Absolutely. It's opened my eyes to something I always knew that was there. I was just too afraid to challenge myself.
Wow.
So here we are.
Here we
So
are.
thanks a lot.
You're very
Really
welcome.
appreciate it. No, it's great. Production is amazing. That's my thing.
Roger.
I'll just keep following on from
Sure.
what Danny said. Stylistically, I've always, as a bass player, I've always been a serve the song kind of guy. basic background in doing blues and classic country and stuff, root fifths and basic walking lines and stuff. And even though I listened to the Beatles, I never tried playing Beatles until we started rehearsing for last year's show. And, I'm always first and third position, way down here at the low end of the neck.
Right.
And, when you start doing McCartney stuff, you got to be up there and jumping octaves and
You got to use the whole thing.
Use that
Yeah.
fretboard.
yeah,
The whole thing.
And so instead of just serving the song being a foundation, you're adding more
Yep.
texture to it
Sure.
than you do in more roots-based music.
It amazes me how he plays the way that he plays and sings. Because last year, so in order for us to have keyboards in certain songs, I would have to pick up the bass. And I was like, sure, I can play the song. And then I'm listening to it and I'm like, oh, wow. What did you just do? What did you just sign up to do? But again, they challenged me, right? So I was like, no, at first I was like, I'm going to simplify the song. And I'm playing it and I'm like, you know what? Don't do that.
Right.
Play the song like it was written. And sure enough, I start playing that song and I'm like, but then I told these guys, I'm like, I can't harmonize. I can't sing during the song because I'm like doing math in my head, Just how he does that is beyond me. But then also for example, the bass line for Something. If you just isolate that track, just how pretty it is by itself, I don't know. He's just, I hate the guy. Kevin.
Can I get the question again?
You sure can. I know it's been a little while, right? How has their music impacted you, and how you as a musician?
Okay. Yeah. I'll parrot what Danny said. Production-wise, is just sort of incredible what they did. They tried everything in the studio, I believe, and I don't know. I guess invented, just sort of did stuff that nobody had done before, and people are still doing now, like with pitch shifting and stuff like that. When you're a guitarist and you start learning Beatles songs, it really does kind of open your mind up to, not just bar chords.
Yes.
It's mind bending. But yeah, I don't know. It's just it challenges you, like you said.
Yeah.
So I think just learning one or two Beatles songs, I think, would make you a better musician, whoever you are.
Excellent point. Jordan?
A lot of ways, absolutely. When I first started playing acoustic guitar, that's where first instrument I picked up around 14. "Love Me Do" was definitely one of the first songs I learned, probably the first 5 or 6. So that's probably one of their most basic songs. I think it's like C, G, maybe D thrown in there. It's the harmonica line. And then once I started getting more in depth, I learned finger picking through Blackbird and the intro for Across the Universe. Definitely all the earliest finger picking I learned. And just really learning how to structure songs in general. They really lay the blueprint out on so many different ways you could structure a song. Then when Squid Inc first started, I was actually the guitarist for a very first year, and we had a different bassist, and I used to play lead. When we switched, our bassist left, and I took over bass. To learn, I was like, if I can play these bass lines and sing, I could probably do anything. So I started practicing a lot of Beatles songs just on my own, and trying just to come or singing harmonies while Jake's playing "Come Together," because I used to play the lead guitar on bass or on the lead guitar for that while singing. So switching to bass was like, now I got to sing these harmonies while doing this crazy bass line. So I just would do it over and over and over. It was really retraining my brain to go to bass and sing versus playing guitar and singing. Very strange.
I remember last year we were trying to do at the end. We ran out of time and we couldn't do it. We were trying to do this jam thing at the end and Day Tripper. And I was like, I need somebody to play the bass, and I picked you. And you're like, yeah, I can play the bass, but at this short notice, I can't sing the song. And I was like, all right,
too riffy.
Dan?
Well, I mean, it's kind of hard to say how the Beatles have influenced me as a songwriter or a musician, because, like I said, I didn't really start digging into them until very recently. But definitely noticing the parallels between the way they arrange songs and a lot of the people that I do consider influences arrange songs, and their kind of a big influence to people that were influences to me.
Right.
So in retrospect, they are, a big part of the way I write music. Because like I said, learning the songs, like, oh, well, this isn't really that different structurally to the way I kind of think about music and try and write music. So it's been interesting to find out the grandfather of the grandfather of,
Sure.
of what I do.
Right, and so that's one of those things, and we can have if we can have a group discussion, that would be great about it. Just how, like you said, discovering the grandfather of the grandfather, right?
Yeah, and if it wasn't for the Beatles, prog rock wouldn't really be a thing.
Right.
And prog rock was kind of my first love in
Okay.
music. I mean, I am a rootsy, bluesy, folky guy now, definitely, but when you leave me alone in my own devices for long enough, I start getting really psychedelic and start doing some weird stuff. And they were the first ones to really get weird.
Sure.
And I really appreciate that.
I wonder what the proggiest Beatles song would be.
Oh,
That is a good question.
that is a good question.
Maybe
I'll
I
leave
Want
that to
You,
your
She's So Heavy?
expertise.
Yeah.
Maybe. I Want You's got a lot of stops and
Yeah.
starts.
Yeah.
She's so heavy.
All Abbey Roadside, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, Helter Skelter. I mean, Helter Skelter is honestly more of a grandfather to metal.
Absolutely.
In more ways than prog, but that's a topic for a different discussion.
All right, so let's talk about last year's show, and I want to know what moments stuck out the most for you, and we'll go this way this time, just to change it up a little bit.
Are we talking musically or technically?
Oh,
I think
well,
Because I will never forget the mad dash of
Oh
getting
my
all that
God.
equipment into the building when it
Yep.
started
that,
raining.
okay, so for those of you who didn't go, who weren't there last year, we set up outside.
we were done.
We were done,
We were
setting,
done
up
setting up.
outside.
Just finished.
And
Sound checked and everything.
Sound checked, all ready to go. We wanted to do it outside because we could get more people, to be able to join and celebrate with us. And I think it was like we had just been done with sound check,
Yeah,
and
just
the
got
sky opened up and it started pouring rain. And everybody, I am so glad that it was so many of us. It was like 20 something of us who were running into each one of us grabbed something and ran inside.
Yeah, I've never seen a stage get broken down that fast.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. Yeah.
And
It was legendary.
and it added some. I mean, for us, who for the musician, it added something, right? Like, okay, I had bumped my head leaving my house to go to the top house. I had bumped my head, and I was like, well, if this is the worst thing that happens today, I'm going to be happy. And you know what? I will never say that again. If something happens, I'll never say that again.
Salt,
because-
salt,
salt. Knock on wood. Because we're looking at. I remember all of us. We're looking at the radar, and we're like, well, maybe it'll go around us, and maybe it'll. And Lawless had just ordered his food, so he's sitting there eating, and it just dumped. So, anyway, I
On the
got
musical
everybody caught
side,
up.
I loved your guys' version of Taxman. I
Yeah.
loved it. I was so into it, man.
Much appreciated.
Yeah. And I really loved it. When we played Little Help from My Friends, I was feeling it.
That song.
I
Yeah.
love playing that song. We do it kind of in a half Joe Cocker, half us way. And yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that.
Excellent. Yeah, I really dug you guys' set. I felt like I was on cloud nine the entire night, but there's these little moments that stick out. And when you guys did Revolution,
Oh yeah, I forgot we did that
oh
one.
my
Yeah.
God, I was like jumping up and down and like an idiot. But yeah,
Yeah, I felt pretty lucky that we got that one. When I said I wanted to do Revolution, I figured everyone already had that one
Yeah.
on their list. So
I think everyone's
like we
afraid
got
of that
lucky.
song.
I don't know
it's-
why that one.
You think?
Yeah, that one's pretty straightforward.
it
There's
is,
way
but there's
harder Beatles songs.
yeah, but there's an attitude to that song. There's just starting with John, and you screaming.
Yeah, you have to commit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
you got to commit.
100%. Jordan, what moments stuck out?
I'm going to go with Miles Bandana's whole set because I'd never heard of them. And
were
since
awesome.
then, I've been introduced to them. I've actually even hung out with the guys in Ocean City. They're very cool.
Yeah.
And I'd like to do some gigs with them. We haven't yet, but
Yeah.
I vibe with them. Like when I saw them, I was like, okay. I was like, they reminded me of us actually, but out of town. I was like, they're very, very funky and groovy.
Those guys were really
They're fun,
cool,
yeah.
and they were the last band to join the lineup. And right away, they were like, I saw them. They were doing. I saw her standing there. This the first time I ever saw them. And so I went up. I introduced myself, and I was like, "Man, I'm doing this Beatles show, but would really love for you guys to be part of the next one because the roster was full." And one of the acts called and said, we can't make it. So, okay, cool. Called Miles Band down, and they were like, yeah, we'll do it. Their set was so much fun.
Yeah.
It was like totally left field. They picked some deep, deep cuts, which to me, for a fan, you're like, okay.
They picked 2 multi-language songs, which I thought was impressive.
Yes,
and
they
then they
did.
did Blackbird and made it punk rock at the end.
Yes.
That stuck with me too.
That was excellent. Again, everybody said I was on cloud 9 all night, but yeah, those moments were pretty cool. Kevin,
Yeah, that was quite a show. Starting out with the rainstorm, and just I don't know, seeing like how everyone interpreted the songs was really impressive, and just to see the talent that exists in St. Mary's County and elsewhere. But Squid. It was awesome, man.
Yeah.
Just
Appreciate it.
yeah.
what can we say?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I really like Jeff Farias's interpretation, even though, they had a hard time with the sound.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's because, we moved it inside and that was tough. Who was the other guy that played with him? Do anybody
Ooh,
remember?
I don't remember his name.
But it was a stand-up bass and a 12-string guitar.
Yeah.
And
the way he picked,
yeah.
I was watching him do
Oh,
it.
yeah?
And I was like, holy crap, how is he?
They were called the Nowhere Men, but I don't know.
Yes.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was what they
Nowhere
went
Men.
by.
Yeah, they were cool. They did some cool early Beatles stuff. So yeah, I don't know, it was just an amazing night. It was awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. Roger.
Yeah, and for me, it was also not one single thing, but it was interesting seeing people taking different number of people to create their arrangements. Like, Nowhere Men had 2 people. You guys had what, 7?
5, but yeah, it felt like 7. This year we're even bigger.
Did you guys play played as a 4-piece? Yeah, we played as a 4-piece. And just people bringing different things
Yeah.
to their interpretations
Sure.
is what made it really interesting.
I think Maldier, some of
Yeah.
those songs,
Yeah.
DJ is he's a genius to begin with. Hi, DJ. He's a genius to begin with, but just he called me the night before and he's like, okay, so we've had our last rehearsal. I said, yeah. And he goes, our set list is weird as fuck. And I was like, I would expect nothing less. I can't wait. And that's part of the reason why I called you, because I knew you would bring it. So
They also played as a 2-piece.
yes, that's right. Because who had somebody?
It was Daniel.
Danny.
Michael, I believe,
Michael
was going
had
to play
COVID.
bass one
Yeah,
that time.
yeah. Danny, you haven't. Obviously, you guys are the new kids on the roster, but what are your expectations for the show?
To have been there last year, that's where I want to start.
No.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
You
Everybody
guys
went,
were already
did you hear
booked.
all the everybody go? Oh, I'm just messing.
You guys
around.
were already booked.
No, we were busy. I'm sorry, and that's why I would have been there, because believe me, that would have been awesome to see last year.
Yeah.
Our expectations for it.
Well, what's your expectation?
I don't come into to this with any expectations other than I know that I know the caliber of people that are doing this show, and I know these guys and all these bands, and I know we're not going to be disappointed. So there's no expectation. I know we're just going to show up and we're going to have a good time.
Yeah, we're gonna have a good time.
And everyone's going to put their spin on it, and everyone's going to do it their way. And I'm excited to hear every last song, start to finish. That's it.
Yay.
That's my expectation, is
Excellent.
to see it all. So that's what I got.
Perfect.
Yeah. Even Mike
Michael?
Trujillo here. He's great. I love him. I love
Hey,
this
thanks,
guy.
hey, thanks, man.
You're welcome, bud.
What moment stands out for you from last year?
Muldier, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Their interpretations of the songs that they did, I thought was really impressive. I mean, they've always been, the ones to do. They're gonna do something. They're gonna really do it.
Mm-hmm.
In the most beautifully obscure fashion possible. And I think that it was awesome that they did that with the Beatles.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah.
It worked very well.
I called DJ. He was the first one I called when the idea, the idea came up because we had just gotten done watching Get Back. And I was sitting on the couch talking to Jay and Miles. I was like, you know what this town needs? This town needs live Beatles music. Like, I just want a night where I'm hearing the tunes and I can sing along and I can party with my friends and just have a good time. And Miles says to me, he goes, and Miles and Jay, they both look at me and they're like, well, why don't you just put one together? So I was like, okay. But didn't really just okay. And the idea just, like a penny in a can, just rattling, right? And a week later, I was like, okay, we're gonna do this. And I called DJ first, and I hadn't even finished saying what I was saying. I'm like, I'm gonna pitch him this idea, pitch him, right? I wasn't even done, and he right away he was like, we're in. When, where, we're in. And I told him, I said, I'm gonna reach out to Rodger and the Runaway Guns for sure. It was all self-serving. I was like reaching out to my favorite bands in town, But I didn't know Squid Inc. yet. I mean, I had seen you guys on Instagram or whatever, but I didn't really know you. So, DJ says, I said, who else should I invite? Because I told him, I said, these are the people I got lined up. Who else should I invite? And he goes, definitely Squid Inc. And I was like, all right. So you guys were playing St. Patrick's Day for this
At the Tap House too?
At the Tap
Yeah,
House,
cool.
right. So I told Jay, I was like, we need to go see this band like today. And he's like, yeah, let's go. And I remember going up to you guys and I'm like, hey, you don't know me, but my name's Carla and I'm, run Southern Maryland music scene, etc. And this is my idea. And I mean, you all right away, you're like, yes. And I come back because I had left Jay at our table. I come back and he's like, I don't know what you were saying, but I could start, I saw every single head was nodding like, yes, we're
always game.
I love that about you guys. So I think for me, what I'm looking forward to the most is One Night Only has gotten together with an orchestra. We have some brass and some strings, and we're starting rehearsals with them. So all of the Beatles songs that have orchestration, you'll hear some of that, and I am so excited about that. I can't wait to hear, these class musicians put together, the songs with us. So.
Oh, yeah.
How has that gone practice-wise? Like organizing?
Organizing wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, or as hard as I thought it would be. We've rearranged the space to fit everybody because it's 12 of us.
Yeah.
Oh,
Wow.
12.
That's about capacity down here,
Yeah.
right?
12.
11. No,
Don't
sorry,
tell the
11.
fire marshal.
I know, right?
Oh, yeah. It is 11.
11
Yeah,
of us. So we've rearranged the space. We took the second drum set and put it back there, and we've moved some things. So the first rehearsal we had was the cellist was the only person who was able to make it, and like I was saying earlier, she had me in tears.
Yeah. It's an emotional instrument.
Next Thursday when we have the full ensemble, yeah, that's like I've been saying, I'm gonna be a puddle in the corner, maybe not even play any songs, maybe just watch what's happening, and I have been saying like, the day of the show, I'm probably just gonna turn around and watch what they're doing because I'm just gonna be
Honestly,
in
Honestly.
awe.
You're gonna fanboy out right there. Like, oh my god.
100%, and not ashamed of it.
I love it.
because
All right.
and Greg, our trombonist, was the same way. I called him and told him, I feel like I prepare these speeches like hard pitches, to sell the show, and everybody right away is like, no, we're in. I was like, yeah, but I didn't get through my speech, like, let me get through my speech. When I called Greg, the trombonist, he right away he was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely in. So I can't thank you guys enough, not just for being here today, but for taking part in this show. It means a lot to me to be able to play with you all, because I admire you. Aw, me too. I admire you all. I admire you all so much. And that's not fluff. It's for real. I think I've told you each one of you individually how much I love your bands and how much, anytime you guys are playing in town and if I can go, I'm there. And Kevin, I love your shirt.
Oh yeah, Pink Dream. He was
Shout out to the Pink Dream.
He was the previous guest
He was.
before this one, right?
Sure.
Love that
He
guy.
was. Interesting conversation. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you all so much for playing. I can't wait till May 20th. Let's have fun.
Thanks for hosting and putting it
Thanks for
together.
having us.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate you having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that.
Absolutely. Kevin.
Me? I think I started out as a John guy. I feel like John is a lot of people's favorites. I don't know why. He seemed like the front man of the group, I guess. And then I moved to Paul. Paul is just, I feel like if he eats breakfast, like he chews musically or something. He's a genius as far as, coming up with melodies. But lately I've been a George guy. Sorry, Ringo, but yeah, George is the dude, man.
Yeah.
He was the underdog. He was stockpiling songs towards the end that they weren't letting him get through. There's that whole story. And so, yeah, he kind of broke out with his first solo record being a double album
Yeah.
of
Of
great
songs, front to back.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And he has, he could get a little preachy, I guess you could look at it, but his intentions were pure, I think, as far as his spirituality and just, I don't know, living life. He kind of just wanted to be a gardener at the end,
Yeah.
He was done with being a Beatle. And he had a cool accent. Like, he didn't say care, he said cuh.
Yeah.
Take a view. What is that? Like the other Beatles didn't do that.